The login looked clean. The username was valid. The password was valid. The new multi-factor token was valid. Every security check returned the same answer. Access granted. Only one thing was false. The employee. Minutes earlier, a support agent had answered an ordinary call. The caller knew the employee's name, department, manager, and employee number. He said his phone had been replaced. He said the authentication prompt no longer worked. He said a deadline was closing in. He was frustrated. He was polite, and he needed help. The agent followed the recovery process. She registered a new authentication method. The caller thanked her. Then he entered the network through the front door. No software vulnerability had been exploited. No lock had been broken. And the company had opened the door for him. This is the attack model associated with a cybercriminal group known as Scattered Spider. Security agencies also track the activity under names including Octo Tempest, UNC 3944, and Zero K Tapis. The labels change because different organizations see different parts of the operation. The method barely changes at all. Learn how a company supports its employees. Then turn that support system against the company. Scattered Spider's defining weapon is not one special piece of malware. It is persuasion. It is preparation. It is knowing how the target works. FBI and CISA warnings describe actors calling IT help desks and convincing staff to reset passwords or multi-factor authentication tokens. They describe phishing messages, text message lures, SIM swaps, repeated authentication prompts, impersonated support personnel, and legitimate remote access software placed under an attacker's control. Every technique attacks the same boundary. The instant a system must decide whether the person asking for access is really the employee. Most corporate security is built around normal entry. A worker enters a password. A second factor reaches a trusted device. The system checks both. Then the system opens. But real employees lose phones. They forget passwords. They change numbers. They travel. They lock themselves out. So every company needs another route inside. An emergency route. That route is customer support. The help desk can replace the password an attacker cannot guess. It can replace the second factor an attacker does not possess. It can bypass a control because legitimate employees sometimes need that control bypassed. Give the help desk a convincing story, and it can turn that story into valid credentials. Social engineering is not new. Attackers have impersonated workers, customers, and technicians for decades. The danger here came from something more systematic. Human deception had been fitted into a modern corporate intrusion. The call was not the whole attack. The call was the first link in an engineered chain. Before anyone picked up the phone, the target could be studied. Professional networks exposed employee names and job titles. Breached databases could expose phone numbers, passwords, addresses, and personal details. Corporate websites identified offices and executives. Social media revealed travel, promotions, new jobs, and the words employees used for their own teams. The attacker did not need to know everything. The attacker needed to know enough. Enough to sound familiar. Enough to sound internal. Enough to sound real. A privileged employee made an attractive target. So did an employee whose role could justify an urgent request. The attacker could learn the company's public help desk number. The attacker could learn the identity provider it used. The attacker could learn the format of its email addresses. A phishing page might already have captured the employee's password. One obstacle remained: the second factor. So the attacker called the people authorized to replace it. The support agent heard correct details. The support agent heard familiar vocabulary. The support agent heard a plausible emergency. A customer was waiting. A system was down. An executive needed a file. The employee was stranded while traveling. The story could change. The pressure remained. Urgency left less room for doubt. and if one agent refused, the attacker could simply call again. That imbalance favored the criminal. A help desk might handle hundreds of legitimate requests. The attacker needed one successful exception. One caller could rehearse. One caller could adjust. One caller could search for another agent. The defender had to make the right decision every time. The attacker had to be believed once. When the reset worked, the attacker stopped looking like someone breaking in. He looked like the employee. That was the illusion at the center of the operation. Security tools can detect many kinds of malicious code. They face a harder problem when a valid account uses a valid password and a newly registered valid token. The access is fraudulent. The credentials are real. The first account may not have powerful privileges. It does not need them. Once inside, the attacker can begin to map the company from within. Which applications does this employee use? Which cloud services are connected? Which documents explain the network? Can this account reach identity systems, source code repositories, virtual machines, or data stores? Internal directories reveal more employees. Support portals reveal recovery procedures. Chat systems expose conversations and organizational structure. Documentation reveals service names, administrative instructions, and links hidden from the public internet. One foothold changes the quality of the research. External reconnaissance becomes internal reconnaissance, and the social engineering cycle can begin again with better information. The roles can even reverse. The attacker can pose as the help desk. The employee becomes the person receiving the call.
Hi, John. This is Sarah.
CISA says scattered spider actors have impersonated help desk personnel and directed users to install commercial remote access tools. The software itself can be legitimate. Companies use the same products to troubleshoot real devices. The file can be signed, the product can be trusted, the installation can look routine. But once the employee runs it, the support tool becomes a tunnel. The malicious component is not the executable. The malicious component is the person controlling the session. Another route uses multi-factor authentication fatigue. The attacker triggers prompt after prompt after prompt. The victim may approve one just to stop the interruptions. The victim may approve one because a convincing support caller is already on the line. One tap completes the login. SIM swapping attacks the phone number itself. A mobile provider is persuaded to move the victim's number to a device controlled by the attacker. Calls and text messages are redirected. The second factor still works. It simply reaches the wrong person. Different methods, same weakness. Passwords can be forgotten, so passwords can be reset. Phones can be lost, so tokens can be replaced. Support teams need remote access, so remote tools are allowed. Users receive prompts, so prompts can be approved. Every exception exists for a legitimate reason. The attacker searches for the exception with the weakest verification. This is why identity access can reach far beyond one mailbox. Joint government guidance describes scattered spider actors moving through victim environments. It describes access to cloud resources. It describes stolen data. And in some operations, it describes ransomware deployment. Recent Justice Department allegations describe a wider pattern of corporate intrusion, data theft, encryption, and cryptocurrency extortion. The transformation can happen quickly. A conversation produces an account. The account reveals the environment. Administrative access weakens security tools. Data moves to remote infrastructure. Systems may be encrypted. Then the demand arrives. Pay to recover operations, or pay to keep stolen information from being released. The first action can still look harmless in the logs. A password reset. After the damage, one question comes naturally. Who failed? The easiest answer is the support agent. She pressed the button, but the button belonged to a system the company designed. The company gave her the authority. The company gave her the verification procedure. The company gave her performance targets. The company built a culture around fast service. Support agents may be judged on speed and customer satisfaction. Real employees become angry when recovery takes too long. Executives may expect exceptions. The attacker weaponizes every one of those incentives. He makes caution feel like obstruction. He makes assistance feel like professionalism. He turns the company's desire to help its own people into leverage. And if verification depends on facts found in a breach or on a manager's name posted online, the agent is defending the network with answers already available to the attacker. The weakness is not just personal. The weakness is procedural. Account recovery cannot be treated like an ordinary service ticket. A password reset is a privileged security event. An MFA reset is a privileged security event. The request may sound routine. The authority it grants is not. Verification must be difficult to reproduce with purchased personal information. High-risk changes can require a known device. A video check, an in-person process, manager confirmation through an independently verified channel, or a delay paired with alerts to the original contact methods. No single check is perfect. The purpose is to force the attacker across several independent boundaries. Phishing-resistant authentication changes part of the equation. Hardware security keys and passkeys bound to legitimate domains can resist many credential phishing attacks. But powerful authentication becomes fragile when a persuasive caller can ask the recovery desk to replace it. The recovery process must be at least as strong as the factor it replaces. Remote management tools need limits. New installations need monitoring. New devices and authentication tokens need alerts. A sign-in immediately after a reset deserves more scrutiny than an ordinary login. Unfamiliar infrastructure matters. Rapid movement across cloud applications matters. Large downloads matter. Changes to security controls matter. Separately, each event may look explainable. Together, they may show an identity takeover in progress. Segmentation limits the reach of one compromised account. Least privilege reduces the value of the first foothold. Separate administrative identities stop an everyday mailbox from becoming a master key. Detailed logs preserve the sequence investigators need to reconstruct the intrusion. Training matters too. Generic warnings about suspicious calls are not enough. Scattered spiders callers are dangerous because they work hard not to sound suspicious. Support teams need realistic rehearsals. They need clear escalation paths. They need explicit permission to slow down. And they need explicit permission to refuse an urgent request. A strong process should not force an employee to choose between being secure and being helpful. The attackers understand companies as social systems. They know confidence can imitate authority. They know urgency can compress judgment. They know the right vocabulary can manufacture familiarity. They know people hesitate to challenge a supposed executive. They know remote workers may never have met the colleague whose identity is being claimed. They know outsourced support teams may have little context about the employees they serve. That last gap creates another boundary: the contracted help desk. Government guidance notes that scattered spider actors abuse trusted relationships involving third-party IT support. One provider may legitimately manage access for many clients. Its recovery process can become a route into organizations the attacker could not approach directly. The company trusts the provider. The provider trusts the caller's evidence. The attacker stands between those two assumptions. This is not a contest between weak humans and perfect machines. Machines also decide from signals that can be stolen or manipulated. Identity is a claim. Evidence is what makes the claim believable. If every piece of that evidence can be replaced through one support process, the system has one human point of failure. Scattered Spider found that point. Then it scaled it. The group's methods blurred the line between attacker and employee. A valid account entered through the normal login page. A commercial support tool controlled a device through approved software. A reset token satisfied multi-factor authentication. Every requested condition had technically been met. The security tools reported success. The economics made the method even more attractive. A reliable zero-day exploit can demand rare expertise, repeated testing, and time. One public incident may lead to a patch. A convincing caller needs different resources. Research, confidence, stolen data, persistence. Those resources can be reused across companies. Nearly every large organization has employees who forget passwords. Nearly every large organization has a team expected to help them. The pretext changes. The human function remains. The work can also be divided. One person collects employee information. Another operates the phishing infrastructure. A specialist makes the voice call. Someone else handles SIM swapping or buys credentials. Another operator explores the network after access is established. Another negotiates the extortion. The caller does not need to master every technical stage that follows. Specialization turns deception into production. The structure begins to resemble a legitimate service organization. Researchers gather information. Callers deliver the pretext. Technical operators use the access. Financial roles handle the money. Successful scripts are refined. Failed calls produce feedback. Target companies are studied for their particular identity systems. Knowledge moves between participants. This is not one criminal genius fooling one careless worker. It is a criminal team testing a business process. Voice gives that team an advantage email cannot. A written message can be examined slowly. It can be forwarded to security. It can be checked against technical indicators. A live caller controls the tempo. He hears hesitation. He adjusts. He sounds embarrassed, then annoyed, then grateful, then frightened. He answers questions immediately, and he pressures the agent while the emotional context is still alive. The telephone carries decades of institutional trust. For years, companies treated a call to support as evidence that a real person was present. Remote work weakened many physical verification options. It also created more legitimate calls from unfamiliar locations and personal devices. The exceptional scenario became ordinary. Attackers entered the ambiguity. Artificial intelligence may make the problem more intense. It is not required. A caller may not need a perfect cloned voice when the support agent has never spoken to the employee. Public recordings can help imitate an executive. But organizational detail and a believable explanation can matter more than vocal similarity. The answer is not teaching agents to detect a fake accent. The answer is a process in which performance alone cannot authorize a sensitive change. Out-of-band verification must actually be independent. Calling the number supplied by the requester is not independent. Sending approval to a newly registered device is not independent. Asking more questions from the same breached profile is not a new factor. A business is only as successful as its people are happy. Security teams also need to watch enrollment, not only log in. Failed passwords draw attention. Suspicious sign-ins draw attention. The registration of a new MFA device can look like administration, but enrollment may be the decisive moment. Once the attacker's device is approved, every later login can look cleaner than the recovery event that enabled it. The reset is the intrusion. High-risk changes need durable signals. The original device can receive an alert. The corporate email can receive an alert. Privileged access can be restricted temporarily. A second team can review the change. Tokens active before the reset can be revoked. Sessions created immediately afterward can face additional verification. These controls create time, and time weakens the attacker's strongest weapon. Urgency. The help desk also needs a view beyond one ticket. One agent may not know that 5 other employees received similar reset requests that morning. Central monitoring can connect the attempts. Repeated stories about lost phones can connect. Multiple enrollments from the same network can connect. Resets followed by unusual cloud activity can connect. They should become one incident, not separate support events. Scattered spider's approach depends on fragmentation inside the defender. The phone team sees a caller. The identity platform sees a reset. The cloud service sees a login. The endpoint product sees a remote access tool. Each action may look defensible alone. The attack appears only when the organization combines them. That is the mirror image of the criminal's work. The attacker combines small pieces of employee information into a convincing identity. The defender must combine small pieces of activity into a convincing warning. Speed matters after access. Identity-based attackers may move quickly because they expect the reset to be questioned eventually. Automated containment can disable accounts. It can revoke sessions. It can isolate devices when high-confidence patterns appear. Manual approval can guard the most destructive actions. Changing identity policies. Creating new administrators. Disabling security logs. None of this removes the need for support. People will still lose devices. Accounts will still break. Businesses cannot treat every employee in distress as a criminal. Compassion can remain. Authority must follow a process the caller cannot talk around. The entire intrusion can begin with 3 simple claims. I am your employee. I lost access. I need help now. Customer support was built as the emergency door beside the security system. It existed so legitimate people would never be permanently locked out. Scattered Spider recognized that the emergency door was still a door. The attacker did not need to break it. The attacker only needed someone inside to open it. The password was real. The token was real. The session was real. Only the person was false.